right. Welcome to all of you who are joining us today. We are so glad that you're here for our Financial Aid 101 webinar of our Summer Transition Series. My name is Dalton Dye. I use the he series of pronouns, and I'm an Associate Director with New Student and Family Programs here at Duke University. We're very thrilled that you've taken some time out of your day to join us for this webinar. And if you've been a part of our previous Summer Transition Series webinars, welcome back. If this is the first one that you've been able to join, we're so excited that you're here. These webinars we host weekly throughout the summer to get important information directly from our campus experts into and in front of our students. All these webinars are recorded, so if you haven't seen some of the ones we've offered previously, you can go to our YouTube page or the NSFP website where you registered for this webinar to review past content and also keep an eye out on the future webinars we have coming up. Today's topic is the Office of Undergraduate Financial Support is presenting on Financial Aid 101, and they'll be sharing some questions and financial aid tips to ensure a smooth transition to Duke. Before I turn it over to them for introductions, I did just want to give you a heads up about some of the features that are present here with our webinar. The first is, like I said, we'll be recording this webinar and posting it online after we're finished. You'll also see in the Zoom feature, the chat is currently disabled, but the Q&A button is available. This is your way of asking questions directly to our panelists. And at the end of the presentation, we'll start going through those questions and answering them for the group and those who are watching later. So please drop your questions in the chat as we move through the content, and we'll get to all those here at the end. I think that's all the housekeeping pieces I have here. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Nicole Knight to let her introduce herself, and then we'll let her get into the content. So Nicole, it is all you.
There we go. I had to find that unmute button. Good evening, everyone, or afternoon, evening, wherever you may be. And thank you for joining us. So yes, I am one of the assistant directors in the Karsh Office of Undergraduate Financial Support. So if you received an aid offer that came from our office that allowed you to accept and matriculate here at Duke, we're so glad to have you and to see you very, very shortly. So for now, we're just going to go through some basics related to your Duke Hub and how the financial piece works and where you can find information. Pretty much everything you need to know lives within your Duke Hub. So now that you have your aid offer and the different pieces, I'm going to show you how to connect them to your hub to move in and throughout Duke as you enter and proceed for the next 4 years. All right. So, kind of where we're going with this is again to explore your hub to help you understand where things live so that you can access them and make sure all elements are present for that bill, which will be coming out very soon. And to talk about some additional resources, whether it's loans or the payment plan, and also what's available for parents if they are in attendance or if you would be so kind as to share with them what they have access to and how they can see the financial aid information. Okay, so first and foremost, the biggest takeaway from this should be that everything you need is on your Duke Hub. So all of the financial pieces related to both the aid office and the bursar's office, so the billing office, are all located and accessible on your phone, on your desktop when you log into Duke Hub. So you will want to explore that at length this summer. Take some time to familiarize yourself with the various tabs. I've shown it here. Your dashboard is what we call it. So if you were to go to your dashboard right now, you would see this information. We did just release and send you all notices about being able to accept aid and report various pieces that may be coming from external sources. And this is what we're sending you. So as you'll see on your dashboard, there is an entire tab dedicated to all things financial called Financials. So when you click on that, it expands greatly to give you many, many options to see your information, digest it, understand it based on your preference for how you like to see information. So do go through it, go through each tab to see what's available. So you can see who your advisor is. You can get a glimpse of what you owe at any given moment using the What I Owe tab. Then there's the billing tab that shows you your entire history here at Duke, different aid components as far as based on each academic year, what your aid offer was, what your parent contribution may have been that year, so forth and so on. So this tab is essential in any given moment, just like if you have a checking account. Or for our parents who may be viewing, when you log into different companies like a mortgage company account, or even your Verizon bill, for example, you have an account log. Well, here at Duke, you have a similar account log that gives you a live feed as to what your balance may be on any given day, what you may owe, what you may be credited, but just in general, where you stand. So that's typically the number one question we get asked as students are moving in and through is what do I owe? Why do I owe? And when? But this is the place to go to see all of that information. And very specifically, the account activity classic tab. So that is your day-to-day in the moment where you stand with the bursar billing office. So if nothing else, definitely check out that section of the financials tab to see what it looks like right now. Because right now you just have a fall bill, potentially a summer bill if you were in attendance for or will be in attendance for this summer. But the fall tuition, fees, housing, dining, if you are going to have a parking permit and the health insurance, all of those charges are already posted on the Account Activity Classic tab. You will see the same information on the What I Owe tab, but Bursar started building that for you all a little while ago. So we have not officially released a bill, but you can see the building of it. You can already see this information on your Duke Hub, specifically using the Account Activity Classic tab. So that said, nothing is due at this moment. The bursar's office will formally produce a paper bill that will go out at the very end of this month. It's slated for the 29th. So that paper bill will be sent to you. And for any parent who has guest access or proxy access, they will also get a copy of that paper bill. But that's more of a formality. That's something that comes in the mail, your Verizon bill, your various checking account, savings account bills, if you still elect to receive paper copies, you get those every month. They don't really mean anything as far as what may have happened today or what may have happened yesterday because they're dated. They're printed on a certain date, so they're only relevant up to that date of printing. So we definitely encourage all families to utilize the Duke Hub live feed to see where you stand on any given day. But that paper bill will go out and it is handy. A lot of families like to use those or to keep track of those. But Bursar will send those out monthly beginning in August. So every middle of the month, you do get a new paper bill. And that just shows you what's happened in the last 30 days since the last print. But it has very little meaning if you solely rely on that piece of paper. We really want you to come here to the hub. Hey, so I did mention that all first year students should have received, hopefully, noticed the communication we just sent this week, yesterday, relating to accepting the loans that you may have been offered. So if you are interested in utilizing student loans to help pay your bill, you will actively need to go on the hub and under the financials tab, you'll see the accept decline. Catch, there is no decline. If you do not want to utilize them, you actually just don't do anything. But if you do need to go to the hub to formally accept the student loans and then complete some online paperwork that will be reflected on your hub to-do list once you accept. But as a first-time student and loan borrower, there is a little bit of paperwork, but once you do it, you're good for the duration of your 4 years. It's a one-time step. So that is what you can do in this very moment. And when you do that, when you accept a loan, it will automatically then appear as additional anticipated aid along with any grant funding we may have offered. So again, on that Duke Hub Financials What I Owe tab, it will update. The moment you accept that loan, you flip over to that tab and it'll now show a reduced balance based on the addition of a loan. Okay. So then the third piece of most aid offers is work study. So students can elect to work during the academic year if they so choose. So some students will wait potentially until the spring, maybe when you've acclimated to Duke and you're feeling more comfortable about your course load and the flow of your days. You can wait to pursue work study until then. You may elect to not do it at all, and that is fine. So, work study does appear for you all as automatically accepted, so you don't need to decline it, and it being accepted doesn't mean anything unless you act. So, if you are interested in what jobs may be, what they may look like, what the pay may be, what the hours being requested are, you're welcome to explore the student employment site, which is shown here. So every summer, so around now, the employers will really start getting ready for the coming academic year. They will start posting their jobs on the student employment site for students to look through, contact them, and pursue that process. So we don't assist students with finding jobs. It's completely student led. You can go on this website, you can look to see what's available. So in your aid offer, you will notice that your work study is listed as either federal or Duke work study. So those are two different programs that do the same thing, but they are two different funds. So depending on the work study you have, you would click on the applicable option and see what the jobs are. So it's a glorified classifieds. So it'll show you what the job is, of course, responsibilities, what the hourly pay is going to be, and typically an average of hours the employer is looking for a student to work in a given week. So you can't work more than 19.9 hours. You are a part-time Duke employee. So you are paid biweekly to your personal checking account. So you would go through a standard HR onboarding process to complete paperwork with your employer to make sure that you are paid accordingly every other Friday. So what you do with those earnings, completely up to you all and your family, because again, they're going to your specific checking account for the hours you worked the previous 2 weeks. So if you do want to use those earnings to contribute to your bill, that's great. You would turn around and make a payment on your Duke Hub using the e-payment system. But it is assumed that for most students, that's their pocket money, that's the money you're using to navigate and operate on campus, and do the things you need to do outside of your billed expenses. Okay. So I do need to update this a little bit because I believe the hourly wage minimum did increase slightly. Whoa, my slides keep moving without me. I do believe the average is a little higher at this point. It was 16. It might be 16.50 for our student employees, but the minimum wage being that amount, students do typically top out around 22, 23. If they continue to either work in a similar position or choose a specialized position, those do come with upwards of 22, $23 an hour, which makes the work study program very appealing. And a lot of students do earn the allotment that they are given. And if they exceed it and we are able to increase it, we will automatically do that. You don't need to request. We will receive that information from the student employment coordinator to increase those that we are able. Okay, so you have grant funding, you have student loans that you can decide whether or not to utilize to help with your bill. You have work study that can help out with your personal expenses. So back to the bill, how do you tackle that? If you are hesitant or concerned about student loans, the best thing you can do is pursue outside scholarships. So I like to call it the maximum benefit amount, the MBA of outside scholarships. So they are definitely beneficial for an aided student because of how they function within the aid offer. So we've decided what Duke holistically is going to cost you between tuition fees, housing, dining, the books, personal, an estimate for travel, all of these categories of expenses. That's what got us to that 103, $104,000 figure. Um, then we decided how much we asked of your family through your family contribution, which is what you saw on your aid offer, your costs and your net cost. So we have the total amount, we think. Then we have a portion of that that we're asking from you to help fill in. And then we had our aid offer. So potentially a loan, work study, and Duke grant funding. If you have an outside scholarship, so money you're bringing with you from a third party, be it the Rotary Club, a church scholarship, something from school, or maybe a national scholarship, all of those are treated similarly and fall under our outside scholarship policy. So, what we're going to do is have you report through your hub. There's a section for that, reporting external aid. Report what outside money you're bringing with you to Duke. We're going to take that total and do some substitution to your existing aid offer. So, for those with loans and then everyone with work study, we're going to first cancel the non-grant funding. So, whatever that total is, if you have a 5,000 loan and your work study is 4,800, we're going to cancel those amounts first and insert your third party outside scholarship money. So I just gave two figures because that's typical for an incoming student. Typically, your work study is around 4,800 and your student loan may be 5,000. So what's that total? That's $9,800 that you can replace with outside scholarships. So you no longer would need to consider the loan. You would no longer need to necessarily consider working if you have third party money that can replace those options. So that is the maximum benefit. If you were to go pull up your aid offer or to go look at the hub right now to see how much was offered among those two types of funding, that's the maximum you could receive from a third party that would directly reduce your bill and assist with your family's cost. Anything outside of that total between loan and work study would reduce the Duke grant. So it's a complete replacement system. We give you as much as we can, negating loans and work study, and then we do have to reduce your Duke grant if you exceed the other two amounts. So, for example, I just gave, if the total between a loan and a work study offer was 9,800, but you receive a $10,000 scholarship, that $200 would reduce the Duke grant by 200. So it's a dollar for dollar replacement system. It does not reduce the total estimated family contribution. It's going to reduce loan, work study, grant in that order if you're receiving grant aid. If you are not receiving any kind of grant funding from Duke, we were able to offer the loan and work study to assist with your costs, but that was it. You can receive outside scholarships in any amount because we aren't providing our funding. So there are two different camps and two different boats. But for anyone receiving Duke grant aid, there's a replacement system. If you're not receiving Duke grant aid, you can receive as much as you would like through third party outside scholarships. Okay. So back to the loan piece, a very popular question because we do want you all to be able to make informed decisions about financing to help with the cost. Within your aid offer, we have listed an amount, potentially anywhere from zero if we didn't offer a loan to 5,000. So the loan we offered was based on your family's total income. There are brackets, and depending on the bracket your family fell into, that drove whether or not we offered a loan and how much. So when you are considering accepting loans, it may specify a type of loan, but if it doesn't and your aid offer says to contact us if you're interested, it's because we need to specify for you what your loan eligibility looks like. And when I say what that looks like, I'm distinguishing between two types of loans. So we want to give you the best loan possible if you are considering using one. So we have to look to your FAFSA to make that decision. Can we give you an interest-free loan? So if something is interest-free, that means during your time at Duke, the loan amount you accept is all there is, and that is all you are responsible for paying back. If you are not eligible for an interest-free loan, we may have to also offer, at least in part, a interest-bearing loan, which means during your time at Duke, the amount you accepted is accruing or gaining interest while you're in school. So you don't have to take any action. You don't have to pay this interest, but that interest is building while you're in school. So for those who take the default route, as most student borrowers do, and do nothing, at the end of your 4 years, you have interest that's been accumulating for 4 years that you are also responsible for, in addition to the original amounts you accepted. So we make that call looking at your FAFSA to determine if and how much can be interest-free. You're just taking out the base loan versus how much would have to be interest-bearing and accumulate while you're in school. So we will distinguish that for you. It may be distinguished on your aid offer already, but if it's not, there are additional steps within the aid offer to inform you and guide you as to what you need to do to find out how much can be interest-free versus interest-bearing. So, important distinction to make, refer to your aid offer and it will tell you if you need to do something extra. And we will update your aid offer accordingly. Again, you don't have to accept anything, but if you just at least want to see and know to have that conversation, we can tell you. Some families only want the part that's interest-free. That makes sense. So you would only accept that portion of the loan and proceed to do the paperwork. So outside of the federal student loan piece, there are some other financing options that you may want to consider to help pay your Duke bill, or to help generate a refund so that you have money for those other expenses, for books, for personal. You can do that if you so choose. So the other financing pieces typically involve mom and dad. So they would be either a federal parent loan or a private loan. So we do have a recommended lender list that details about 11 or 12 specific loan programs that we truly do recommend and highlight for our families to consider. So it's going to be some traditional lenders that you've seen before and that you're familiar with, and probably a few that you haven't. Or maybe you've seen those commercials for them, but you've never thought twice. And now is the time to actually dive into them to see if it's beneficial for your family and your situation. So we do highly encourage a family to peruse the list just to see if there's anything there that is worth pursuing. So the list is hosted on a third-party site. So it's really nice. It allows you to compare loans. It allows you to go directly to their application if you want to. And then from there, if approved, if you pursue the process and you're approved, that information comes back to Duke and we update the aid offer on the hub to reflect a private loan, whether it's the Federal Plus loan or a true private third party loan, and also any additional student loans. So every time we manipulate and update the aid offer based on something you've done externally, that additional funding will show up as anticipated aid, and bursar can see it just like you see it on the hub so that they know what's coming from all sources and they're not anticipating an additional payment from you. So again, if you are thinking about financing, you have student loans available that we can help and assist with, and then there are parental, private, or a parental federal loan. So to get to the recommended lender list, you can just plug it in our website. You could go to the financial aid .duke.edu and go under the loan section to navigate to the list. You could just plug it into Google, Duke recommended lender list. It'll take you there. But it's updated every July, so it is updated for the coming season for you all to pursue that process. You all receive the approvals pretty quickly, and then that information is automatically sent to Duke so that we can certify, yes, this is a Duke student, yes, they are eligible to receive the amount they've requested, and then we add that to the aid offer, and then the lender also gets their certification back. So it's pretty streamlined, and we will be working through that heavily this July, August, gearing up for the fall term. Okay. So outside of our Duke grant, potential student loans, potential parent loans, the last option to help pay that bill would be a payment plan. So I would approach it in the reverse. If you have your Duke grant funding that you know is automatically going towards your bill, and now you're trying to figure out the rest, a good place to start would be deciding what are we comfortable with paying out of pocket. If there is an amount that you anticipate or that you would like to pay directly from a checking or savings account, we do not accept credit cards. But if there's a checking or savings account that you will be paying from, decide how much that is over the course of 10 months. That would then be something you could pay through our payment plan. Now, you're welcome to pay a lump sum in August and then again in January for the two bills, but most of our families would like to spread that cost out. So to do that, you would utilize our NailNet payment plan. So you would create an account on their website, and you per semester would enroll in that term's payment option. So you can do as few as three and as many as five payments per semester. So that's six, upwards of 10 for the full academic year, to spread what you're comfortable paying out of pocket. So there is no interest, but there is a fee when you sign up. And once you do that, you are locked in so that whatever your total balance is evenly spread out over the 3 to 5 payments. But for most families, whatever that amount is spread over 5, if that can cover the bill, great. But if not, that's when a potential financing option may need to be pursued or looked into to understand so that a decision can be made. So I would think most families, especially those who are receiving Duke Grant, it's kind of an all three. You've got the funding we've given, you've got the amount you're comfortable splitting over a payment plan, and then the amount that was left over that you did opt to finance, be it through student loans and or a parent federal or a parent private loan. But that would kind of be the order of operations to approach it, to hopefully minimize any student and or parent debt, but really allow you to think through what the options are. So that said, if you do utilize a payment plan, Bursar, the billing office, does try to manage that. So if you are underpaying or overpaying, they notify you, or NailNet will notify you to make adjustments accordingly. But the other neat feature about it is you aren't subject to late fees. So if you're on a payment plan, you will not receive late fees, even if your amount is under, because you will get that notice to make adjustments, or maybe that's a moment where you do decide to go ahead and finance, all of those nuanced situations. So definitely worthwhile considering if there is an amount you will pay out of pocket. Okay. So I just said a lot, and it's a lot to take in, but you're not alone. I always like to say that as much as coming to Duke is for the academic education, it's a financial education. You just didn't know it. So for both student and parents alike, it's a lot to take in and to learn for what seems like a short period of time. But you're not alone and we're here with you. So firstly, I want to make sure your parents are aware that they do have access to a lot of this information. Students, you are the adult. You are the person that we have to communicate with. We are not allowed to share your information. We are not allowed to tell your parents or your guardians anything about what's on your hub unless your family, your guardian, your parent can demonstrate they have prior knowledge and that they're on the hub and we're talking about things openly because it's very clear they can see it and know what we're discussing. If it's not that situation, I am very hesitant to say anything. So the best thing to do is to go ahead and give your parent or guardian what we call proxy access. So proxy is just a fancy word for guest access. So as a student, you initiate that process. You would go onto your hub and put in the contact info, the email address for parent, and follow the process so that they are given a login to create for themselves so that they don't have to track you down. They don't have to ask you for your login information. They can see what you allow them to see on their own separate Duke Hub login. So it's important to distinguish that. It's not giving them full access. They're not seeing what you see on the hub. You have to check off what they're able to see. Because what it really boils down to is they want to see the aid and they want to see the billing items. And I would highlight the obvious. If a parent is responsible for paying a bill, it's kind of nice to give them access to see it to make sure that they're able to do what they need to do, so that you're not penalized, you aren't receiving late fees, and they don't have to track you down. So again, it's only what you allow them to see, your academic information, your health information, all of that would not be something they can automatically view unless you let them. But let them see the bill. Let them see the bill, so hopefully they pay the bill. Okay. So email and the Duke Hub are the main ways to reach our office. We do have counseling staff in the office throughout the year, but contacting us is super simple to just shoot your individual counselor an email. If you are familiar with their address, to shoot an email to the FinAid office. Um, and or if you want a virtual appointment, we do have a booking link to allow you to schedule with one of us. But numerous ways to reach out and to get the information you need. The irony will be most of the information is already on your hub and already accessible. You probably just didn't know where it lived. So what we like to do and attempt to do is to answer your questions, but to also guide you as to where that information lived so that you are informed for future reference. And the same with your families, your parents and guardians. So whether it's looking at the aid pieces, knowing what communications we've sent, there's a place in your hub, the message center, where you can see all of the notices sent to you from the financial aid office, the bursar's office, and any other relevant office that may send a mass communication to you all. They live in your Duke Hub, so you have a record and a history of them. Other than that, we do email pretty frequently. So depending on what you may get into, what you may be involved in, if it has a financial component that we can assist with, we will email students. We will notify them if there's something we need from you, of you, or just to let you know we see and we know what's happening, and we will be making adjustments or accounting for various situations shortly. So those are the ways. In addition to the ways to contact us, there is the ways we contact you that you'll want to pay attention to, just so that you're in the loop and familiar with what's going on and where we are in the academic year, whether it's things happening on campus or if it's time to renew your aid. So for anyone who received grant funding for this year, that was just this year, you will need to renew your aid in the late winter of your first year. So in the coming December, January, February of 2027, you would be completing the process all over again. So we notify you through your Duke Hub. on your Duke to-do list, through email communications, notices in the message center. So do pay attention to that so that you don't miss anything or forget to submit any documentation. Outside of that, we do have our website. So it is updated frequently. So what you see is accurate and correct. So especially as you come into Duke and you start thinking about things like study abroad, summer session, whether it's here or abroad, you're thinking about health insurance, which is current. Health insurance processing is happening right now. So if you want to understand how financial aid works with health insurance, go to our website, look at the information. If you have additional questions, we can answer them and make sure that you understand the info that you are reading. But there really isn't a situation that's not represented or spoken about on our website. Right? So use a chatbot, just like you would your Duke Hub to see what's there, whether it's something applicable now or down the line. So then lastly, when you do contact us, you are typically contacting one of our analysts. We have two analysts who are serving you on the front line, but we also have dedicated counseling staff. So all of you are assigned a financial aid counselor. So it most likely is the same person who did your review, but it may not be. But we will officially assign you all a counselor and let you know who that is in the coming weeks or month or so as we head into August. But your counselor is who you can contact relating to your actual review, the analysis we did that led to your aid offer. Any additional questions specific to your aid offer or what we were able to provide will go to your counselor to help you understand, you and your parents, your guardians understand what impacted your aid offer, what we can do from there. If any of you are familiar or went through an appeal process, your counselor was your advocate with the appeal committee to see what we could do if we could provide any additional funding. So they are with you for 4 years to continuously renew your aid as you reapply every spring to determine your new cost, your new level of grant funding, and any other things that may come up. So, as I already mentioned, the best way to get in contact with us is via email, but we do offer virtual appointments throughout the year through MS Teams. So, you will want to download that and have it available, period. I know across campus, you all will probably end up using multiple platforms, but for our office specifically, we are a Teams office. So, we do enjoy seeing you all, meeting with you all from the comfort of your dorms or the library or beautiful scenic images outside as needed and as it meets or suits your schedules. So outside of our office, we do also have a personal finance. So that's student loans. So we are offering you all loans. We can direct you to the recommended lender list, but we actually do have a separate office that works to process everything behind the scenes. But in addition to loans, they offer just general financial literacy for understanding how to create a budget, what resources, especially the free ones, are available to Duke students, where to go on Tuesday night to get $5, I don't know, but whatever those things may be, those tidbits related to food or gear, or just socializing in and around Duke's campus and Durham in general. Our personal finance office keeps tabs of that so that your experience is fulfilling beyond the classroom, but definitely within budgetary limits or constraints, so that you're able to have a well-rounded experience. So they host all throughout the year different sessions on campus, which is a great way to get free food, is to go to personal finance sessions and have catering for the evening. So definitely worth checking out beyond just choosing and accepting loans, but what else they can offer to help boost and boast your experience. All right. So I think I did it. Right? I have 5 minutes to spare. But if there are any questions or clarifications that I can provide relating to the information, sorry, my slides jumped around a little bit. I was not touching the keyboard. They just jumped. I guess it was time for me to move on. But if I can provide any additional clarification or information, Heather, please do let me know. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Nicole, for all of your information. I know this was incredibly helpful for the people on the call and those who are watching it later. I know there have been a handful of questions asked in the chat, and Heather's been
Yes.
doing a really good job at clearing those out. But I did want to
Mhm.
ask a couple just out loud for the good of the group of those who joined late or
Yes.
might be watching the recording later. A big one we hear a lot all the time is around the student medical insurance plan and the waiver,
Yes.
how that impacts the total charge, and then for a student who is granted the waiver, when does that actually fall off the bill?
Mhm.
Which I know might be more of a bursar's account or Office of the Bursar question, but if you have some insight you could share, I think that would be much appreciated here.
Yes, I can answer all of them. So the health insurance process is every June. So every June for the next 4 years, the Gallagher portal, so that's the hosting company that processes these waivers for us, that it will open so that families can enter their personal health insurance coverage information. So you will need to do it every June. So our process is relating to the bursar side is that every student is charged for health insurance. So it's going to appear on your fall bill every year, which is kind of encouraging because the amount. So this year it's over 4,200. So it prompts you and motivates you to complete the process. So if your home coverage is sufficient, so it meets Duke's criteria, which the criteria is documented and listed on the health insurance page of the Student Affairs website. If your home coverage is sufficient for your student to be here in Durham, you will complete the waiver. That information will be given to the bursar's office, who will then post a credit to your account. So it's a one-to-one. You've been charged 4,290. Your insurance is deemed approvable or approved. They give you a credit for 4,290. So it's a net zero. That will happen 4 times. So you do have to remember, I like to say, put a reminder on your Outlook calendars, mom, dad, for every June 15th-ish to go in and complete the waiver process to get that credit. Conversely, if you have home health insurance that does not meet Duke's standards, or you don't have any home health insurance, you will still, both groups will still complete the waiver process. Those who have coverage, but it's not sufficient, they will be denied a waiver, which means your coverage isn't sufficient for Duke, so we cannot approve this. It will show up as denied. You will see that on the Gallagher portal, and it will say your coverage has been denied. You will be enrolled in the student health insurance plan. So the bursar sees that information, which tells them that charge should stay because you're going to be enrolled. Now's the convoluted part. If you're receiving Duke grant and your waiver was denied, you need to let the financial aid office know. You can take a screenshot of your Gallagher portal, or you can forward the denial email that you received to our office. And because you're receiving Duke grant aid towards your tuition and fees, we will increase your funding to pay for this mandatory coverage. So the third group is those who don't have anything. If you do not have health insurance, your waiver will be denied by default because you don't have anything. But there are specific instructions so that you get the same denial as someone who has info to enter. So the instructions are on our website. If you go to the financialaid.duke.edu, go to the student health insurance, there's a section. If you do not have insurance, here's how you complete the waiver so that you will be denied. Forward that to the financial aid office. We will increase your grant aid to cover that mandatory charge. So there's 3 scenarios. And the whole point is you aren't paying. You either aren't paying because you don't need it and you get a credit, or you do need it and you receive Duke Grant, so you need to let us know so that we can pay for it. But we emailed students the entire first year class last week with all of these instructions. And it's pretty simply laid out with all of the links and instructions for what to do depending on what group you fall into. So do check your Duke emails. Everything we send from here on out is going to your Duke email. So make sure that we are tagged as safe, trusted senders, add us to your contact list so that you're getting these emails. We will send a reminder next month to complete this process if you haven't taken action, and we'll send one beginning of September. You do have to complete the process by the 14th, I believe, this year, September 14th. If a student doesn't do anything, then they are automatically enrolled and there is no way to get rid of the charge. And we cannot pay for it because you didn't complete the process for us to be able to distinguish if we could assist. So you'll get two more reminders, but you do have an email from last month sitting in your Duke inbox. I only got one that bounced back, so I know all students received it. But that would be the process. And the good thing is, for our students who need the coverage and are therefore eligible for grant funding, they will receive it for the other 3 years, so sophomore through senior year, without doing anything. It'll be automatic in their aid offer sophomore year on, as long as you do it correctly your first year. So that was long-winded, but that is all the, the health insurance info.
That was great, Nicole. And I know that health insurance is a question that we get a lot from a lot of folks. So thank you for clarifying
Mhm.
and adding some additional context there. I know there's another one in the chat that we'll talk about
Yeah.
live, but just sort of on a related tangent. If a student, their family situation has changed,
Yeah.
income is different than maybe what it was when they first applied for financial aid. I know students
Mhm.
reapply every year, but what can students do in the case that their financial situation has changed from receiving the aid package to actually paying for
Yeah.
school?
Yes. So we do have an extensive appeals process. So the appeal link is live. If you go on the financial aid website and under the forms and resources tab, there's a special circumstances option. So that page will take you through all of the things we've considered up front. So we don't need additional information. Then all the things that we cannot consider, which then leaves everything else. So if any of those expenses or circumstances are applicable to a family, they are welcome to click the link to fill out the appeal form. So it's completely online and family driven. A family would complete it with the necessary information, summarizing what the situation is, providing the applicable documentation so that we can review it and for our records, and then they submit. It'll go to the appeals committee who will review everything and make a determination as to whether we can increase that level of Duke funding, therefore decreasing the bill. So we accept appeals throughout the entire academic year. So for you all, whether it's right now or maybe it's something that happens once school starts, that's fine. Depending on the situation, we will tell you if it's something we can address right now or if we have to wait and when your appeals process can occur. So we will help and guide, depending on the situation, what to do and when to complete the appeal form and what's needed. But the biggest takeaway or things to remember are A, we do have to have documentation. We can't just go off of a statement or a summary. We do have to have something that points to the expense or the expenditure. So do be aware and cognizant of that when you're looking through the appeal um, link and considering if it's time. Do you have the proper documentation for us to be able to do something? So the biggest one we do see is either income reduction or job loss. So that's a very popular appeal that we will receive all throughout the year. The biggest thing with those appeals is everything we do is based on taxes. So if you have a tax return for the year of effect, that's the moment I can do something with it to see if it reduces your cost. So if something happens this year, 2026, I can't adjust your aid until spring 27 when most of us are filing our 2026 tax return. So ideally, if you typically file by April 15th every year, get us your tax return, upload it through the appeal form, and we will do a revision that affects the entire academic year. So even though we're talking March, April of 2027, that will still change your fall 26 aid. So it's nice and it's what we call retroactive, but we will still look at the whole academic year and adjust it no matter the circumstance. So if it's taxes, if it's unusual expenses, it doesn't matter when you appeal, as long as it's within the academic year, it will affect both fall and spring funding. So we will work with you all on what to do, when to do it, but do take a look at the appeal form on our website to know if it's something we can consider.
Great. Thank you so much for that insight. And I think if I would just want to reiterate, your website has a lot of good resources and information out there. And so if students have questions, they just need to check it out and see what is answered already. So that's great. Uh,
Yeah.
Another question I think that we have flagged is around work study. So
Yeah.
obviously for during the school year, it makes a lot of sense. But what about over the summer? If a student is
Mhm.
taking classes or not taking classes, like how does work study work with that gap?
Yeah.
And then does that type of role just roll over from year to year, or how does that work?
Yes. So work study is tied to need-based aid eligibility. So if a student is interested during the academic year, if they're receiving grant aid, then it's already in the aid offer. If they're not, or if they don't think they qualify for grant aid, that's fine. You can still have work study. Any student can have work study and or loan as long as you have a FAFSA on file. So that is the bare minimum requirement is a FAFSA. And then just let us know, hey, I'm interested in work study. And we'll make sure we post an offer of work study on your Duke Hub. So the neat thing is, once we post it, it automatically translates to the student employment site. So any potential employers will automatically see what type of work study you're eligible for and the amount. So all that processing happens automatically. But because it's tied to need-based eligibility, it's also tied to enrollment. So you have to be enrolled. So that does apply to summer. You would have to be enrolled for the summer and eligible for grant funding to also be given work study. But most students, especially if you aren't participating in summer or if you don't qualify for aid over the summer, you will still come back in the fall and resume the job you had in the spring. Most students keep the same position. The rates, the wage may increase slightly year to year, but students work that out with their employers fairly seamlessly. They will end in the spring if they're eligible over summer because they're in summer school, then we'll offer them some. But most go spring to fall, pick up where they kind of left off. We have two work study students in our office, and so we send them off in the spring, we welcome them back in the fall. We create a schedule, and it fluctuates as needed based on your academic schedule, your testing, your midterms, or whatever's happening. It's intended to be extremely flexible. Some students who truly want to maximize it will have a primary job and then a secondary job. So one job they might work 5 hours a week, and another they might work 10, and it just works out well for them. Um, but it's intended, you have to be enrolled and you have to be need-based grant aid eligible to also have summer work study. But fall, spring, give me a FAFSA, I'll give you work study. If you don't qualify for grant aid, you're more limited in the amount. So all of our non-grant aided students can receive up to 2,200 per academic year, and that would be every year. So even if you don't earn it all, you'll still be offered 2,200 each year. But for our need-based grant aided students, they are offered a different amount that's based on their year in school. So for a first year, it's going to be up to 4,800. And then sophomore through senior year, it's a flat 5,200. So again, if you earn it all, great. If not, fine. It will always be 5,200 sophomore through senior year.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that insight.
Mhm.
It does look like our questions have slowed down, which is great. We
Okay.
only have a couple minutes left, which is perfect for us. I think one thing I just wanted to name, I know you mentioned it, but around
Mhm.
the connecting families to
Yeah.
accessing Duke Hub and all that. We sent an email out. Our newsletter 2 weeks ago included instructions on how to update the relationship with guest
Yes.
access for students. So students
Hmm.
who are listening in on the call, go back and review that email, follow the steps, and get your parents the access that they need. Again, from our office, that's a common question we get from families is,
Yes.
how can we receive your newsletters during the year? And the answer is it starts with the students adding
The
the
students,
system.
yes.
So
Definitely. The control is in your hands, but do let
that's
your
right.
parents know what's going on. Give them some access, guys. And also call them at least once a week. But yes, I saw that newsletter. It was great. I forwarded it to a parent myself. So
Perfect.
everything is out there at this point. But referring to your Duke emails, there's probably a few in there you've missed, but we have completely transitioned. So no more school accounts or Gmails. Everything is Duke. So we will be emailing you shortly. I will be emailing all of you shortly related to that health insurance again. So do look out for those.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Nicole and Heather, for your time here today. One last little plug here outside of financial aid. So, next week will be our next summer transition series event. This will be with the Office of Undergraduate Education, talking about Duke 101 and the foundational blocks of the curriculum for both Trinity and Pratt students. So, if you have not signed up yet, the link is on our website. It'll be 4 o'clock Eastern time, so same time as this week. And again, if you can't make it, we'll be recording that webinar and putting it on our website. So I think with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up. Once again, thank you all so much for your time. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we look forward to seeing you at the next one.